Which villain do you feel sympathy for? Magneto, Holocaust survivor turned super powerful mutant who is always trying to protect his people, so they never have to go what he went through in the camps. I think X-Men First Class did an incredible job at portraying Magneto's background. He started out only wanted revenge against the Nazis who murdered his mother and his people, and also tortured him. As he grows up and witnesses/faces more discrimination against mutants, his goal becomes revenge against all humans. In his own way, he has always tried to protect the marginalized, oppressed people like him. The boyfriend Ken from the B movie. I think Quentin Reviews said it best when he said that, basically, Ken plays both the movie's antagonist and the straight man. I mean, sure, he's a bit douchey, but he's just a guy, and he's justifiably weirded out by the situation, and rightfully mad that his girlfriend doesn't want to hang out with him anymore because of a bee. Sandman from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man series in the third movie. He just wanted to save his remaining family. Don't agree with his methods, but do agree with his reason. That scene, after he gets turned into Sandman, where he is trying to pull himself back together is like one of the most beautiful scenes ever. The visuals, the music, the sadness, it gives me chills every time. Loki in the first Thor movie. He then turned into an anti-hero of sorts, not a villain, but he is certainly a villain in the first movie. Dude just wanted his father to love him as much as he loved Thor. Then he finds out he was kidnapped from the Frost Giants and raised in a lie. I feel like Odin is the real villain for that family. He's typically seen as a villain due to Disney and Satan, but I'm sympathetic to Hades. In his original myths the only bad thing he ever did was kidnap Persephone, and that was normal at the time. He even asked Zeus first. He treats Persephone kindly, and in most versions she falls in love with him in end. Outside of that myth, Hades mostly minds his own business and does his work. Edit. Wanted to add that I feel sympathy even in myths where Persephone does not love him back. There were many gods after her hand, and Hades was the nicest of them. If he hadn't taken her, I fear it's all too likely someone like Ares would take her and treat her much worse than Hades. Hades is like the only one of the Greek gods that actually acts maturely. The rest acts like spoiled 20-something rich kids. Baby doll from the old animated Batman series. She was stuck looking young forever, and it broke her down. She actually cried in Batman's arms because of it. We also can't forget Scarface's ventriloquist. He wasn't in control of Scarface, since Scarface himself is another personality part of him. I feel bad for him. Frankenstein's monster. In the book it's astounding how much of a jerk Victor is. Isn't that the whole knowledge is knowing Frankenstein is the doctor, wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein is the monster thing. Knowledge is power. Frankenstein is bacon. Dracula from the Netflix Castlevania series. Dude lost his wife to religious fanatics after he rediscovered his humanity and had to fight and nearly kill his son, the only thing in this world that Lisa left him to remember her by. I don't know about you, but that was pretty much what sold me on the Netflix series. They completely changed Isaac, and it was fantastic. Dracula's relationship with him was so great. Doctor Doom usually has portrayed just as a classic villain. Someone that wants to take over the world, kill the heroes, etc. But the reason he wants to do it is what's kind of interesting. There was one comic where his kingdom of Latveria invades the kingdom of Wakanda. The Panther god gives him a test Ike, and he ends up passing the test because his reason for wanting to take over the earth is pure. Has been traveling through alternate timelines, and in every single one except one, human is wiped out in the future. The only future where humanity survives is one that is brought to order under his rule. Kind of a personification of the question, do the ends justify the means? Megamind. But I guess that's the point. Megamind has such an interesting perspective on who is good and who is evil. Metroman is good because it gets him attention and fame, which he loves. From his childhood he gets everything he ever wants and loves it, then moves on to being a superhero to get more fame and popularity. Then when he gets sick of that, he just abandons it despite knowing full well that he's leaving all the citizens at risk. So in the end Metroman isn't really good. He doesn't care about the safety of the citizens or doing good, just the fame. Megamind is raised in a jail by criminals who teach him to be bad, but he still tries his hardest to fit in and get along with others at school and not be bad. When that doesn't work out, no matter how hard he tries, he turns to the only thing he's good at, being bad. Then when the time comes he actually turns good, not because of fame or fitting in, but because of his own morality. Even as a villain he never truly tried hurting anyone. He just wanted to essentially put on a show and maybe one day beat Metroman. He didn't even intend for his plan to succeed when he finally did win and was shocked and disgusted at the thought of having killed someone. Titan is good at first because he thinks it'll get him girls, but when that fails he uses his powers to do what he wants and becomes a tyrant because he no longer has a reason to pretend to be good. True evil hides behind the mask of goodness. Javert from Les Miserables. He's a police officer who isn't corrupt in any way, shape or form. He is just so bent on justice that he leaves no room for mercy. He's entirely broken when mercy is shown to him that he commits suicide, as the worldview he's built for himself has been completely shattered, and he can't cope. Volgian doesn't even blame him for hunting him for so many years. There is nothing I blame you for. You've done your duty, nothing more. Thomas from Tom and Jerry. He had to put up with that smart-ass mouse, only because it was backed up by a massive dog with anger management issues. I thought Jerry was the villain though. Tom was a cat. He was supposed to get the mouse out of the house. Jerry was a bully. Jerry had no right to live there. Tom was the house pet. Gollum, that is one messed up little hobbit. I wouldn't really call him a villain, but yes, I definitely feel bad for him. Edit. For those of you saying he's a villain, I don't agree. He's more like a junkie. Junkies are not necessarily bad people, but they will do what they think they need to in order to get their fix. I really liked it when in the books he saw Sam and Frodo sleeping in each other's arms, and he sits near them touching them to feel a connection to something he once was without caring about the ring. Then Sam woke up and beat the shit out of him. Azula from Avatar, The Last Airbender. She was brought up to be her father's tool in the war, and in the end, that broke her. Worse for me was that she was only 14 and spent her whole life believing her mother hated her and that the only possible way to be loved was to be feared. Like her mother wasn't perfect too. She failed to recognize that her own flesh and blood was going through a tough time mentally. If she would have focused on both Azula and Zuko, making sure that Azula doesn't turn bad, maybe it would have been so much more different. Zuko wanted his father to recognize him, while Azula wanted to feel loved by her mother. Robbie Rotten. We all know Sportacus is the real villain. His sidekick is a 9-year-old girl. That's kinda suspicious, not gonna lie. Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxies. She was literally abused by Thanos, and I don't know why, but I want to be her friend. She seems so depressed, and I want to cheer her up. I absolutely love her, and was so happy to see her making friends and becoming part of the team in Endgame. Adrian Toomes, Akka the Vulture from SpiderMan: Homecoming. He starts off as a small business owner cleaning up the mess that the Avengers left after the destruction of New York, and then loses that job because the man who was partly responsible for the mess in the first place steals the job right from under him. And instead of turning to revenge and becoming some kind of anarchist, he becomes a weapons dealer to pay his mortgage and take care of his employees. In fact, his whole motivation is to provide for his wife and daughter, take care of his employees, right up until the point where he disintegrates that one guy and barely blinks and tries to kill a teenager. He may have started out well, but he definitely lost his way. Scar from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. His people were victims to genocide, and he wants revenge. If something like that happened to me, I would also become a mass murderer. I'm glad his character turned into a hero by the end. I never saw Scar as a villain. I saw him more like an anti-hero. A man who lost everything due to a war where all his people died, and then he was forced to become some kind of terrorist. Envy was the real total piece of shit. Dr. Doofenshmirtz. His own brother is a reffing achievement. His mom values kickball over her own son. His dad made him be a garden gnome and stand outside of their home with their neighbor. I do not blame Dr. Doofenshmirtz for being evil. The shit he went through, who wouldn't be evil? If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.